Alright, I still got my little Tiny Cart 2S here set up, and I did a bunch of battery testing. I wanted to kind of see which would be the best battery choice. I've got 5 that I tested. A 2S 650 high HV from RDQ, a 2S 730 HV from Kodar, a 2-cell 850 HV from Kodar. And this is a real cheapie that's actually sold for like model trucks. I put a XT30 connector on it. I've tested this one before, but yeah, obviously it's got quite a bit higher milliamp hour rating with not that much increase in weight over that 850 I just showed you. But obviously the seed rating is down. So I tested that one as well. And then I just bought this 1300 2-cell Kodar HV, and I tested it both with the normal charge level and then with the HV charge level. So what I did is I did a flight in the basement here with all of these documented, the flight time, how many milliamp hours were used. Obviously I know what the all-up weight is with each combination, and I also measured where I had my stick position at the 30-second point for maintaining a hover, and so that's the percent of the stick to maintain a hover, and then how many amps were being drawn at that hover position. Obviously the heavier you're going to be drawing more amps, so it's trying to find that sweet spot in the efficiency with the weight loading on the quad. So let's look at the results. Alright, so I got my spreadsheet here. Again, I got the Tiny Cart showing what its dry weight is, and then I got each of the batteries that I mentioned, the 5 batteries, and then on this last Kodar 1300 I tested it with the initial voltage at 4.17 volts per cell, and then at the HV level at closer to 4.3. So you can see, what the cost differences is. Obviously the cheapest one was this $10 Genix, and then the Kodar ones, which are kind of premium batteries, but here's the C ratings for them, here's the individual weights for those batteries, and here's the all-up weight. So I'll be testing from the lowest end, 146 grams, up to 178 grams. Now when I ran the test, that's what's in the diagram here. Shows the initial voltage as I was about to take off, what the throttle setting was at the 30-second point, the amps at the 30-second point, what the total flight time was, and then I also was able to capture what the milliamp hours used, and from that come up with a few things to compare. So here we got what percent of the pack, how many milliamp hours basically were used compared to what it was rated at. That's taking the 413 divided by the 650 and tells you that in that case 64% of the rating was used for that one. So in this comparison here, the one that did the best was this Kodar 850. It used 768 milliamp hours, and it's rated at 850. So that's kind of one thing you want to look for. And then kind of the trend, as you can see, is the higher levels here, especially with the UR-GNX. He was only used 680 milliamp hours, though he's rated at 1100. And this was the same thing I did in each case. Was I did stop the flight at exactly 3.4 volts per cell, so there's consistency there. So the point there is you want to really be kind of skeptical of the milliamp hour rating on the pack unless you do some testing and you learn to test or learn to trust certain manufacturers and maybe not trust so many others. The next thing you want to consider is what, it's kind of a efficiency thing, how many seconds per gram of all up weight. So in this case, the one that stayed up the longest for each gram of weight was this Kodar 850 HV, which was kind of interesting. So that's kind of the sweet spot, and you can see both of these are above 2.0, which is pretty good values. But you can tell even down at this very bottom here with the Kodar HV 1300, it was also getting close to that 2 seconds for each gram of all up weight. But you could tell in flying it, it was struggling. Now the one thing you want to kind of keep in mind too is what kind of flight duration are you looking for. And in this case I only had 3 of them that got over 5 minutes. These two, basically the Kodar ones that I set them up for the HVs. So if you're trying to capture 5 minutes of video, then you're going to be looking at using one of those types versus this very lightweight one with the HDQ 850. But speaking of that one, if you look at what did best as far as the number of seconds for milliamp hour used, it turns out that the lightest weight configuration gives the most seconds for the milliamp hour used, with even though the duration was only 3 minutes and 32 seconds, it was able to carry that pretty easily because the weight was down. Anyway, I thought this was some interesting data, and in my particular case I'll be flying mostly these two Kodar ones, the 850 and the 730. And obviously I could tell just flying it that even though the weight difference was only about 8 grams, it just flew a lot sportier down with these lower weight batteries on it. So anyway, that's it for today. Thanks for watching.